Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Charlian Forum. My name is Chris, and today we got the 68th, 58th, I can't remember the number, live letter for the 7.2 patch series for Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail. This morning I watched it and I recorded the whole thing, and I did react a little bit live. This is me at 6 a.m., very half asleep and very eating a bagel and drinking coffee. So I will spare you that. But I did want to just go over kind of what we saw. I took some notes that I'm going to read off of here on the side and just sort of talk about what we can expect for the 7.2 patch series. But just initial observations, this is going to be a huge patch series. Probably the biggest we've ever seen in terms of just like pure content delivery. And I'm very excited. So let's jump into, well, actually, before we jump into that, I want to thank the unofficial translators over at the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord, Aluna Minori and the gang. They are an indispensable and extremely valuable part of this community, and they offer us so much information that we couldn't have as, you know, unless you're a Japanese speaker, when they do these live letters without translation. So huge props to them, and I'll put a link to their Discord channel below. So with that said, let's kind of jump into what we talked about during the patch reading and try to see what we can expect going forward in 7.2. So first things first, patch 7.2 is called Seekers of Eternity, and it will be launching on March 25th, 2025. So that's Tuesday, like usual, no big surprises there. Of course, we have our standard new MSQ, new dungeon, the Underkeep, a new trial, Recollection, which has a normal and an extreme mode. Just to talk about that for a second, Yoshi P did say that the normal mode of this new trial, quote, shouldn't be that hard, but the extreme, I wonder how long it will take for the strats and macros to be unified. He did say that he considers it to be difficult compared to Sphene, and that we only get one totem per clear this time, so no dual totem fight. That may mean that it's a little bit shorter than Sphene, or, you know, they may just consider it to be a little easier to clear than Sphene, despite the fact that the fight itself might be harder. I'm not sure what the justification is for Sphene having two, but Sphene is a pretty long trial, so it may just be that this one is a much shorter, much more straightforward trial fight than Sphene was. They also talked about the new Savage tier, Cruiserweight, Arcadian Cruiserweight. It will be releasing 1 week after the patch. So April 1st is when the new Savage tier will be available. You will have a full week to get your crafted gear, to play the extreme, you know, whatever else you want to do with your group. They did show footage of the first floor, which the boss is named Dancing Green. Yoshi P said, quote, I wonder if there is any meaning to the different colored tiles. So definitely some floor mechanic. The background music was fully dynamic. When the boss did attacks, they sort of had like sound wave forms, and it actually adjusted and changed the BGM. Which was really cool. It, of course, absolute banger. Soken doesn't miss. They also talked about very briefly here, they didn't really elaborate on this much, but they talked about briefly, and again quoting, so usually it will be enough to just pass a mechanic, but maybe this time we have some sort of, quote, perfect bonus if everyone does it correctly. So this is an interesting thing. What they may be alluding to here is that when everybody performs the mechanic perfectly, instead of, you know, just passing it, you actually get some kind of damage bonus maybe, or some kind of bonus. And I was watching this with some of my static mates this morning, and our speculation was that this DPS check is going to be much tighter than the first tier, They alluded to the fact that this tier is designed with balancing in mind for the jobs. So it may be that if you don't get these bonuses, whatever these bonuses are, that you can't pass the check, which would be a really interesting way to sort of do damage downs, but in reverse, kind of. It's an interesting thing, and I'm excited to see what that means. They did talk about Suzaku Unreal will be replacing Byakko as our new Unreal trial. They also discussed briefly some of the side content that they're going to be releasing in 7.2 series. So that includes this Corn Servant side quests, obviously PvE and PvP job adjustments. Duty support is being added for the Sunken Temple of Karn, and I don't remember, they didn't mention it this time, but I remember seeing somewhere that they had planned to rework the Sunken Temple of Karn as well. So it seems like they're going back to older optional dungeons now, changing them to streamline them a little bit and adding in duty support to help people get through that content. And they're introducing, of course, the new tomestones, the Allegan Tomestones of Mathematics this time around. That'll be our new capped tomestone, our weekly capped tomestone. They didn't really go into the details, of course, of the job adjustments. They never really do this early. They'll usually discuss it in the patch notes reading immediately before the server goes down. They'll sort of talk about that. But they did say that melee DPS jobs are receiving a damage buff. However, uptime is expected to be much harder to keep up this tier. So to me, that means that they are expecting these DPS checks to be pretty tight. And because there's going to be smaller hitboxes, larger arenas, and potentially a lot more downtime in these fights, they are giving melee DPS jobs from the way it sounded, a sweeping DPS increase. They did finally confirm that Pictomancer is getting nerfed. Sorry, Picto mains, you had a really good run. I'm sure it will still be really strong, but they said, quote, "We tried so hard to not nerf Picto, but we just have to." So it seems like they finally realized that the numbers are the issue, not the design itself lends itself to a certain playstyle, and no matter what, if they change the playstyle, it changes the job completely. So they just have to bring numbers down. It's just the way it is. They did say that they're changing the release schedule of how content is coming out, like very slightly with this patch. So they obviously, like I said, the patch itself will be releasing on March 25th. The Savage tier will be dropping 1 week later on April 1st. 3 weeks after that, on April 22nd, 7.21 will launch, and that will include Cosmic Exploration, which I'll talk about here in a moment. And then on May 27th, a month later, the 7.25 patch will release, which will include the Occult Crescent Exploration Zone, the Mamuljad Beast Tribe quests, and the Hildebrand quests. So they're sort of spreading out this content over a 3-month gap instead of just dumping it on it all at once and getting overwhelmed and just letting people do what they want for 3 months. They're sort of spreading this stuff out so that people have some more time to digest these pieces of content individually and move through them in sort of a progression instead of just scrambling to do stuff immediately, right? And I'm going to go through the live letter in chronological order, the order that they showed stuff in, so it might not be exactly the order that you want to hear it, but I will, of course, put chapters and timestamps and all that stuff, so you can feel free to skip around. So up next, they did a presentation on PvP. So first thing they showed was actually some PvP gear sets, and I really, really like these sets. I think that they look really nice. There's sort of a techno future vibe to them, very Solution 9, but without a lot of the super strong neon and gray and white and stuff like that. I think most of them look really, really good. I think they look like great sets, so I'm very excited to get these. They also then talked about a new system, which is PvP role actions. So PvP role actions are going to be a set of 3 actions that you will have access to based on your role, and you'll be able to choose one of those 3 actions. There's a singular PvP role action button that can be assigned to your hotbar, and it will change actions based on whichever one of these actions you have selected. So you don't have to put all 3 of them on your bar or swap them out. You can just put the one button and it'll change function based on which action you have selected in the menus. You can change the role action that you have selected during a PvP match. You just have to be in a safe area, similar to how you can change jobs in a safe area. And Frontline Secure is returning with some improvements. So some of the improvements they talked about are a new critical location buff, which will be flags that are dropped around the map. And when you're inside of it, anyone inside of this area will be granted a huge damage buff called Sheer Will. Now, they said that this buff applies to everyone in the zone, regardless of who controls the flag. So those zones are going to be extremely contested, super death zones, where everyone is just blowing each other up. You also gain tactical points for holding those zones, so there is some incentive to claim them. There's going to be some new teleporters that will activate on the edges of the map that will teleport you into the middle. And I think that that's a really fun system. I've been playing the video. I'm going to pause it. I'm just going to cut myself out, I think, and slap it over what I'm talking about, but I didn't want it to blast my face with light. So the new location buffs, like I said, that'll be really important. There's going to be teleporters that are at each base that will teleport you into the center of the map to get right back into the action. And another thing they showed is that you can now move while casting your mounts. They showed this in the PvP showcase first, but it is not PvP exclusive. This is a new change, a new quality of life change that applies to everywhere in the game. So you can now move while you are channeling your mount cast. There's no need to stop, summon your mount, and then keep running. You can just keep running, hit your mount button, and it'll pop up under your feet while you're running. And this can be done while sprinting as well. They showed that in a clip later. After this, they showed the new Tomestone Gear, which I am a huge fan of these gear sets. They are very, very traditional fantasy. I think the people who have been wanting traditional fantasy gear are going to love these sets. They are very clearly inspired by previous Final Fantasy games. The scouting set is literally just Zidane, but I really like them. I think that they're really fun, and it's cool to see some sets that will make the traditional fantasy people very happy, considering some of the other sets they showed, like the PvP sets, are still sort of leaning into that futuristic theme. I think that will make people really, really happy. So the next thing they showed is Cosmic Exploration. So again, this is launching 1 month after the patch lands in April. On April 22nd is when Cosmic Exploration will be available. So they said that it does require the completion of Endwalker, not Dawntrail. So you can actually do this without completing the Dawntrail MSQ if you're a new player or if you just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. The only requirements to enter are the completion of Endwalker, and that you have a Disciple of Hand or Disciple of Land level 10 or above. So this will be a leveling method for crafters and gatherers if you have not finished leveling them yet. They also announced that this entire system is going to have its own separate inventory, which is a massive, massive thing for a lot of people. And it has a unified UI similar to Island Exploration, where you're going to have a large window that's going to have a bunch of different functions in it, and you can basically operate completely out of that window instead of having to go into your menus and do all this stuff down there. It does have endless sprint. It's just a sprint toggle, similar again to Island Sanctuary. And then interestingly, they showed sort of a breakdown of how you might, what we're going to be doing in this zone. So the first thing they showed is basically a gathering leave. So leave missions are kind of back. You're going to pick up these missions. You're going to go to the area, and you're going to be tasked with completing a task in that a single goal in that area. And once it's complete, it ends and you get your rewards. Now, the cool thing about these is that unlike leave quests, you can accept and turn in these missions from anywhere in the zone. You do not need to go back to a quest giver or an HQ or anything to turn them in and get your rewards. The next thing they showed was emergency missions. They described this as a change of scenery. that will give new objectives to everyone in the zone to contribute to. And as you contribute to this bar that appears at the top of the screen, you will gain rewards throughout. And if you finish it, you get a very large reward. So this sort of reminds me of the bets or feats system in the Ishgardian Restoration. It's sort of similar to that, where it pops up, everybody in the zone can participate, everybody gets rewards. And then there is the Mecha Operations. So this is sort of the new premier content that's going to be in Cosmic Exploration. It's similar to Bajja Duels in a lot of ways, but it's also similar to just like a traditional Fate, but it's crafting and gathering based. So the way that these work is that it's split into two groups. There's a pilot, and then there is ground support, is what they called them. So when a mecha operation appears on the map, you can apply to be the pilot. Now, applying to be the pilot requires a ticket that you will purchase using currency from completing missions and stuff like that. And once you submit your application with your ticket, then you will be entered into a lottery, similar to Bajja Duels, like I said. Once somebody is selected from this lottery, they will become the pilot. If you are not selected, your ticket is returned to you, so you don't lose anything for applying. Even if you don't get selected, obviously if you get selected, it consumes your ticket and you become the pilot. Now they did say that I believe there are up to 5 pilots per effort, depending on the mission. They were a little bit vague there, but they said that there could be 5 pilots at a time. The other group of people, the ground support, as it were, basically walk around inside of this fate zone. A circle will appear, and you will gather materials or return them in or whatever you're going to do. While the people that are in the pilot suits are essentially doing the same thing, but they can obviously do it much faster and with larger deposits for bigger reward. One of the other things they showed is there is a unique return ability with Cosmic Exploration that casts super fast, and it also has no cooldown. So you can zip around in this zone and return right back to where you need to be. They then showed the new Cosmic Fortune system, which is similar to the Kupo Fortune from Ishgardian Restoration, but instead of it being a stamp system, it's a roulette wheel. So you'll spin the wheel, and where it lands will determine what rewards you get. They also showed in here some new die colors. They only showed a couple, but my assumption is that there's obviously more than 1 or 2. So I'm sure that there will be a good selection of new dies available. After this, they did a breakdown of the currencies from Cosmic Exploration. There are 2 different types of currencies. There are Cosmo credits and there are lunar credits. So Cosmo credits can be exchanged for rewards. They didn't really expand on that, but I have to assume that that means things like, sort of like the Ishgard Restoration tickets that you get. I have to assume that that's like dies, gear, coffers, stuff like that. Materia, whatever. And then there is the lunar credits, which are sort of the premium currency. These can be used to purchase the Kupo or the Cosmic Fortune spins on the roulette wheel, and they are also the currency that you need to buy the pilot tickets for the mecha operations. So those will be very important. They didn't fully explain how these are accrued, but I'm sure that it's just from doing missions, doing fates, participating in stuff, you will get both of these currencies. After this, they went into an explanation of the star contributor system. So this is actually a leaderboard that's going to exist in the Cosmic Exploration content, where every 24 hours, there's going to be a window, a 24-hour window, where you can contribute to the effort of Cosmic Exploration. And every other day, they're going to poll that data, and whoever participated the heaviest, contributed the most, will be granted the Star Contributor Award and be placed at the top of the leaderboard, of course. They talked about a few different things that happen when you get the Star Contributor Award. The first is that there will be a series of pods inside of the base camp that will actually have a hologram of your character if you are the Star Contributor. And you'll also have your name on the bulletin board, of course, and a visual effect will be applied around your character as you're exploring so that everybody knows that you were a star contributor. This app status is applied to you and it lasts for 14 days. And what that means is that you have these visual indicators for 14 days, but you cannot be granted star contributor status while you are under the effect of it. So this is a great way to make sure that one person doesn't just like no life this and monopolize it and they're always the star contributor, because once you're granted it, you cannot be granted it again for 14 days. Now, since the polling happens every other day, there can be 7 star contributors at a time, and you'll be able to see all of their holograms. You can go in and customize your hologram. You can change its pose. I'm assuming that you can change the gear, like reflect your current gear on it, but they didn't really explain that. So it looks like a really interesting system, a cool way to incentivize people to contribute. They then talked about the cosmic tools, which is the like relic weapon equivalent of your crafting and gathering tools. They will be available immediately on Cosmic Exploration release. And they said that they are, quote, strengthened through progressing through the Cosmic Exploration missions. They didn't really elaborate on that much, but it sounds like we may have a slightly less intensive version of the previous ones, which required a ton of work, a ton of back and forth. So I'm personally very happy to see something that's maybe just a little bit easier to get through. They then talked about the patch cycle for this content. We're going to start on the moon, but with each major patch that comes out, so 0.3, 0.4, and 0.5, they will add a new world for us to explore with cosmic exploration. So there will be plenty to do in this content going forward, and when it first launches, again, 1 month after the patch releases. So then the big one, they talked about the Occult Crescent Isle. We've heard a million different names for it, but they talked about that next. So let's get into it. So the requirements for entering the Occult Crescent are that you must have completed the Dawntrail MSQ and you have a combat job, war or magic, at level 100. So this is level 100 locked. This is not going to be a zone where you can level your jobs through it like Bozja was. They said that their intention is to make this more explorative and less like, used for that, as Bozja kind of became just a leveling zone in a weird way. So they want to instead allocate that sort of leveling progression to the new deep dungeon, which they also confirmed the new deep dungeon will be coming in 7.3. So anybody who doesn't have everything leveled by then, 7.3 will be a new deep dungeon, and you'll be able to level all of your war and magic jobs through that. But this content, Crescent Isle, will require level 100. It will be level 100 locked. You will not be able to level jobs through it. So they said that similar to Eureka and Bozja, you will talk to an NPC to enter the instance. It's not a queued thing. It's split up into several instances, of course, and there are 72 players per instance. The new system knowledge level, it's very similar to your elemental level in Eureka. It affects the damage you take and the damage you deal. You're going to notice that this basically is like Eureka 2. It's very, very Eureka coded. Similarly, if you're above level 5 and above, you will lose XP on death. If you are not revived by another player. Of course, if you get revived, you don't lose XP, but as soon as you release from your body and return back to the starting area, you will lose XP and you can level down. So this is literally Eureka XP design. The first zone they showed is called Occult Crescent South Horn. That's where we'll be spending our first foray here. They do have a weather NPC, which means that the weather will likely affect monster spawns or events similar to how it does in Eureka. Certain fates are only available during certain weathers, etc., etc. So then they talked about the support job system, or the phantom job system. So this is sort of the new Logos action or lost actions. This is what's replacing that system. So the new support job system, you're going to have support action slots. It looks like there were 3 of them from what I saw. They're equipped on this sort of ring on the side of the UI that you can spin to change which one is active. So basically what you can do is you can set one keybind, and then you can spin that wheel to change which action is actually on that keybind instead of having to put all 3 of them on your bar. But if you want to, you can also just put them on your bar. So it's totally up to the player to decide how they want to do this. Support actions are learned by leveling support jobs. You can equip support jobs to your character, and whenever you have them active, as you gain experience for your knowledge level, you will also gain experience for your support job. Now, they didn't say if the support jobs will also lose XP when you die or not. I'm assuming probably not. I think support jobs are sort of meant to be the more permanent progression, whereas the knowledge level is sort of meant to be like the overarching elemental level power scaling of the content. So we'll see, but I doubt it. Something tells me to doubt that. They did confirm though that each support job is leveled independently, so you will not be able to level them all up at once. You will have to equip them and level them. You only get XP for the support job that you currently have equipped. So this is definitely going to be a little bit of a grind to get all of these support jobs leveled up. Now, they said that as soon as you zone in, the support job you're going to have access to is the Freelancer. But the first quest will unlock 3 additional support jobs, and that there are 12 support jobs in total. Now, they did say that these jobs will be unlocked through either questing or exploration. So we may have some that are a little bit tricky to find, especially at first, so that it'll be fun to track those down with the community. Now, thankfully, one of my static mates actually reads a little bit of Japanese, so when they were scrolling through some of the actions, he was able to translate them for me. Time Mage is one of our support jobs, and their 5 abilities that they have are Sloga, Comet, Mage Smasher is how he translated it, Dispel, and Quick, which we assume is haste, essentially. And then they also scrolled past Bard very briefly, and those were Attack Song, Love Song, Song of Strength, and Hero Song. Now, of course, we didn't really get a great look at a lot of these. I'm sure that there will be more information in the future, but for right now, we know at least kind of where we're at with those 2 and sort of what we're looking at. The zone is very, very, very big. I would say that it's definitely larger than Hydatos by a pretty good margin for people that are familiar with Eureka. Critical engagements, and fates both return. I did not see anything that would indicate notorious monsters have returned, but I also didn't hear them say anything about them not being back. So they may be, we're not sure. But they did talk about critical engagements and fates. So there are 4 Aetherites on this map to give you an idea of how big it is. And none of them are locked. They are available to attune from the very beginning. So if you're brave enough, you could run all the way to the far corner of the map and grab that Aetherite if you don't get absolutely obliterated on the way there by a monster that's way stronger than you. But you could do it if you're confident. Critical engagements have been changed slightly. You don't have to sign up for them in this menu anymore. It seems like now it's going to be an area appears on the map and a countdown will begin that everybody can see. It looks like there's a little text box that pops up underneath the phantom job window that sort of gives a timer that ticks down, and anybody who's inside of that zone when that timer ends will be sucked up into the critical engagement, and they are now engaged in that fight. So it seems like there is no player limit here. So we can have huge groups fighting these bosses. XP chains are returning. EXP chains are returning. There's also a new system called Knowledge Level Sync that is definitely sort of a counter to a lot of the issues that ended up happening in Eureka. This is a new system where players are able to sync their knowledge level down if they're in a party where the lowest level member is 4 or more levels lower than they are. So the example they used is that Yoshi P was level 6, the other person was level 2, and because the level gap was 4 or more, they actually were unable to get EXP chains. So it looks like you'll still be able to get EXP, but everybody who's done Eureka knows that the chains are really where the XP happens. So if you are 4 or more levels apart, you cannot chain XP with that person. So they introduced this knowledge level sync system that will bring you down to within 4 levels of them, and you will be able to, again, make EXP chains with them. There's a little symbol that appeared above the monsters' heads that indicated that they were eligible for EXP chains. If that symbol is not there, that means that you need to sync down in order to chain on them. There was a small section about fates. Fates are present, and they function basically just like regular open world fates. They're just open events that you can show up to late, you can join at the beginning, you can do whatever. They will just be there. Again, I'm not sure if notorious monsters are going to be included in this, because those are essentially just fates. We'll see. I'm not sure. They didn't really talk about it. Like I said, critical engagements will have no restrictions on player count. They'll be on the map beforehand with a countdown that's slowly ticking down, and you have to go physically to that area and stand inside of that zone. And when the timer ends, anybody that's in that zone will begin sucked up and begin that fight. They then talked about the new, Baldessian Arsenal equivalent. It is called the Fort Tower. So this is, like I said, basically Baldessian Arsenal. You have to use a special item to gain entry, and there's 48 players in it. They talked about how, as you're exploring, you might come across these, what they call ciphers. There's various ciphers that you can discover, and when 16 of these ciphers are used, a node will appear. Anybody who goes and stands on that node will be eligible for entry into the Forked Tower, and after a certain amount of time, it's going to teleport them off. So I'm assuming that you'll get a critical engagement style pop-up on the map. It says, hey, you got 2 minutes to get over here, and at the end of that 2 minutes, whoever's standing there is going into the Forked Tower. Now, they did say that this is limited to 48 players, so if there are more than 48 people standing in this zone when the time runs out, it will randomly select 48 players and send them into the Forked Tower. It did say that players who used a cipher are more likely to be selected. So if you're one of the 16 people who spawned the instance by using your cipher, you're probably guaranteed to get in, and then it's going to fill the rest of the 48 by randomly picking whoever's in that zone. They didn't really talk about how that's going to work with parties, but I would say it's likely that if you're in a party, you might get split up if you don't get randomly selected and somebody else in your party does. So we'll just have to figure that out as we go. Now, the Forked Tower does have res restrictions similar to Baldessian Arsenal or Delubrum Regine Savage, but they said that some of the support jobs can bypass this restriction. So there will likely be jobs that have raise actions that ignore the restrictions placed in the Forked Tower. Now, they did say that story completion is not required to enter the Forked Tower. You do not have to finish the zone to go into this. You can just do it. They said, quote, "We expect the prog to take quite a bit of time, and for the first clearers to be having very serious discussions about mechanics." So they're seeming to imply that this is going to be a pretty tough content. So we're excited to see what we might get there. He also said that there are many hidden rooms in the Forked Tower, but they didn't really discuss what's in these rooms. It could be additional encounters, it could be additional loot. Don't know. They never said. They then talked about the new Treasure in the Wild system, which is a new system where treasure chests may appear randomly in the world, and you can walk up to these treasure chests and open them, and you get to keep anything that's inside. This is similar to me to a Bunny Fates, especially with the next thing they talked about, which is the magic pot system, where you will find these magic pot enemies that will need to be saved by giving them an item. And once you save them, they will point you towards a treasure chest. So to me, this is basically Bunny Fates, but with a little bit of a twist. So we'll see. So then they did a currency breakdown for Crescent, Occult Crescent. There are two currencies, the Enlightenment silver pieces and the Enlightenment gold pieces. Silver pieces, they said, are acquired mostly from fates and critical engagements, while gold pieces are acquired from defeating monsters. So these will almost definitely be our two pieces of currency that we'll use to enhance our weapons and armor as we go. They did say that the first step of the new relic weapons, the phantom weapons is what they're called, will be available immediately when this content starts. They did say that the first step will be, quote, some sort of drop when you clear some sort of content. Extremely vague, but of course my mind immediately jumps to when you clear a forked tower, you'll get your base weapon. I think that might be a choice. I think that if it is as hard as they are saying it is, people may not be super into that. A lot of people don't like having to do content to get rewards. They want stuff to just happen. I'm not sure what to tell you, but I'm excited for that. I think it's a really cool thing where, you know, you do this hard thing, you get a weapon, and then you get to make it stronger. I think that that's really fun. So I'm excited for that. Now, again, Occult Crescent does release in 7.25. Again, that will be 2 months after the initial launch of 7.2. So May 27th, I believe is what they said. I'm going to check. Yes, May 27th. May 27th is when this content will drop. Now, they did briefly talk about their plans going forward with this content in the future patches. So 7.25, like I said, will be its initial launch. 7.3, they said they're actually going to take a break with Crescent Isle because they're doing the new deep dungeon during that patch. That'll also, of course, be the new Alliance raid and a lot of other stuff. So it's not like just because this content isn't getting updated in 7.3 that nothing will be getting added, right? You get the new exploration or the new cosmic exploration, new Alliance raid, new deep dungeon. All that'll be in 7.3. And 7.4, we're going to get the addition of new support jobs for the Occult Crescent. So again, not a content update, but we will be getting new support jobs, which means new things to level, new skills to get, new things to explore, you know, all kinds of new stuff to find and experiment with. So plenty of injected life. And then in 7.5, there will be a big update. They said they want 7.5 to be basically the same size as 7.2 in terms of content delivery. So in 7.5, we will get a second zone for Occult Crescent. So this content will be split into 2 zones, similar to Bajra, where we'll have Zadnor in the southern front. We will have 2 zones for this one as well. So the second zone will be added in 7.5. We'll also get new support jobs and a second forked tower-like instance. So I'm basically reading this as, you know, like Dalriada and Castrum Lacuslatori will basically be the equivalent of the Forked Tower and whatever the second one is. But it behaves sort of more like Baldessian Arsenal. So there's some really interesting blending of Eureka and Bajra here, where we have the Eureka structure and system, but with the Bajra logic, where there's critical engagements. It's split into 2 zones. It's a lot of really, they're taking the best parts of both of these experiences and mashing them together into one experience that I'm super excited to try. And then that was pretty much it. They talked about some merch and some other stuff at the end. And then they said that, of course, there would be a patch note reading on March 24th. That's a Monday before the patch launches. That will be Japanese only. So that's pretty much everything they covered. I just wanted to give you guys a little breakdown of sort of what was in the live letter in case you couldn't see it and you didn't want to watch the whole thing. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a shorter experience because it was a long one. It was about 3.5 hours. So it was a pretty big one. But I'm excited to see the job changes. I'm excited to see more from the raids and the Savage. Really excited for that. And Occult Crescent looks so much fun. I've actually been doing a lot of Eureka lately, getting weapons for glam. So I'm really excited to get back into exploration zone content. It's some of my favorite content in the game. And also really excited for cosmic exploration. It looks super fun. I already have my crafters and gatherers leveled, but I think I'll just enjoy having like a fun thing to do, you know, get some cool glam, get some mounts. They did show, I almost forgot. They did show mounts. They showed minions and mounts, pets and mounts. The mounts they showed all look really great. I'll put some snippets behind me as I'm talking. There was the new wings from Beatrix. There was a car, like a Solution 9 car. My theory, of course, is that that is the Savage mount. There was a new airship mount that looks like a multi-seater. My theory there is that that is going to be the Eureka chest mount, the Occult Crescent chest mount that you'll find randomly in the chests, sort of like Eldthur's was. They also showed field notes, like the field notes equivalent for this zone, so we will have some collection and you know, progression through the field notes like we did in Bozja and Zadnor. So we're getting a ton of stuff. It's looking like a really stacked update. I'm super excited to see more, and I hope you guys are too. And let me know what you think. Comment down below what has you the most excited or the least excited. And don't forget to subscribe if you feel like I've earned it. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you don't. Share it to your friends to let them know what's going on in 7.2. And it's going to be a long 11 days, but I'm super stoked, and I hope you guys are too. And I got nothing else to talk about. That's pretty much it. This video has gone on long enough. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.